10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Liftoff.
On a, well, let's see. First it rained, then the sunshine, then it got cooler, then the sun came back out, then it rained again. Welcome to my home state of Alabama, the only place I know that can legitimately have all 4 seasons in one effing day. Live in a multiple location station on this Thursday night, April 26th. This is the Shooters Gallery on the Beyond Ringside Radio Network and ProWrestlingRadio.net. To everybody listening, okay, real quick. I've been battling with our primary stream server for the last hour. So for everyone listening on .net, thank you. First and foremost, thank you for remembering .net is there and checking it out. You have my word that the player that is on BeyondRingside.com, it will be shifted to the .net server by tomorrow morning. So that means through both websites, we are going to be simulcasting all the way across the board. The current server through .com will be its own entity for the app. And once Apple falls into play, it's going to be an entirely different animal. That will become the secondary live server. So, once again, if I'm confusing, I'm sorry. It's like trying to make as much sense as why the hell Baker Mayfield went to the Cleveland Browns with the first overall pick. Trust me. Now, I am the Magic City Motor Mouth, the opinionated one. Fast Eddie Layne in the ever-evolving Studio One, welcoming in tag team partner, the president of wrestling, Phil Stamper.
Howdy doody, y'all.
Thank you, Clarabelle. Clarabelle was the clown on the Howdy Doody show. Trust me, Phil, it's before your time. Welcoming in tag team partner, the voice, Ted Guinness.
I don't know if I can follow Phil's just tremendous intro for himself. That would go down in the Marconi Radio Hall of Fame for self-introduction. Bravo, Phil Stamper.
He is a very selfless, very self-deprecating, very humble individual. Until, of course, you put him in front of the crowd where he's a heel general manager. Right, Phil?
There you go.
Oh, now he's stealing your gimmicks.
No.
Phil has become my favorite person of the day.
See, here's the thing. And Phil is one of the few people who has to... Say again, Phil?
Nothing. We're good.
I can barely hear you, dude. Come off speakerphone. Come on to regular lines.
I'm actually using Bluetooth. I'm in the car. This is what you get.
See, Phil is one of the few people who has permission to use one of my trademark lines as it pertains to me. I am heel by birthright, babyface by bad casting, and actually Guinness has my permission to use that one too. That's an original. That's one of my trademark lines. You know.
No, I'll come up with my own stuff, man. I don't like stealing other people's gimmicks,
or at least
or even using them with permission, because you never know. There might be that Kevin O'Leary deal where I have to pay you royalties in perpetuity of 85%.
Only if you hit the lotto, dude.
Dude, if I win the lotto, I might give you $85.
You know, there's a lot going on today, of course. The greatest Royal Rumble live event is going to be in about just over 12 hours from now. Live on the WWE Network. There are some hinge points that I really want to cover on this one. Because,
please, let's do it.
Social media.
Yeah, we should probably talk about it first then, because you know how derailed we get on this show.
Well, I was actually going to sit back and bring up something about the NFL draft, which is currently going on. And this is something that, okay, now, why in the blue hell would Cleveland take a high-profile player like Baker Mayfield in the first round knowing that 9 times out of 10, when they take a high-profile player in the first round, look back over the history of the franchise in the last 15 years, it doesn't end well for that entity. Every time Cleveland takes a high-profile, high-firepower player in the first round, it doesn't end well, and I mean period. 2 words, Trent Richardson, Johnny Manziel. I mean, let's be real.
That was 4.
Actually, there was a comma in between, but still, I'll give you that one. You know, of course, Minkah Fitzpatrick from the University of Alabama, Roll Tide, going to the Miami Dolphins. I think Fitzpatrick is going to be a great fit for Miami's defense, which means I'll be watching 6 teams this year. Oakland being 1, Atlanta being 2, 1 AFC, 1 NFC, and I have a couple other teams that I watch every once in a while. Of course, Guinness, you're a Raiders fan, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
That's what I thought.
Yes, and you were talking about, high-profile busts. I didn't even go to Manziel first or Richardson. I went straight to Jamarcus Russell.
There you go. And for the record...
Yeah, but, I mean, here's my thought process on that. And I think this is a little bit different than previous years, because in previous years, they drafted the high-profile quarterback or they drafted the high-profile running back, but it was still only one piece of a very inept offense. What they've done this year is they went and got Tyrod Taylor from Buffalo. So they have an established quarterback who can run, lose very simplified system and run it effectively. And then later in the season, they'll be able to expand the playbook. They've gone out and they beefed up the receiving core. So as long as they can keep the receiving core intact and maybe add on to it, if Des Bryant can get signed, I hear they're going after Jarvis Landry. I don't know if there's been any movement on that. I haven't looked into it in the last couple of days.
Neither have I.
But if they can stack up that receiving core and give, what was his name they got drafted?
Baker Mayfield?
Yeah, Mayfield.
Oklahoma kid.
I was thinking Stewart for some reason. Have Mayfield sit on the bench for a season and a half and work him in, midway through the second half of next season. He will have time to sit on the bench, absorb the system, learn the system with his receivers in practice, and then you start giving him more reps toward the end of this season in practice with the first team. You give him 50-50 reps with Taylor and, in training camp next season, and basically make it a quarterback competition. If Mayfield wins, by all means, throw him out there. If Tyrod Taylor wins that quarterback competition, you still sit him back. He's right there, and then that way you can work him in. The other thing they need to do is really focus on their defense. Not a lot, because if you look at the games that they played last year, they didn't lose a lot of games by more than 10 points. They didn't score a lot of points either. That was their big downfall because they're the Cleveland Browns. But with the improvements they've made on offense, if they can get a better back than Isaiah Crowell, who's been there since 1934, it seems, they may actually, and my roommate and I were talking about this, we both agree that the Browns could potentially go 10-6 this season and make it as a 5th seed in the playoffs as a wild card.
That's high hopes. That's high aspirations. One win in the last 2 seasons.
It's high hopes and everything, but it's not unprecedented for one. 2, they're making all the right moves and bringing everything together. Now,
let me guess. Trust the process.
If I had to put a, what's that?
Let me guess. Trust the process.
No, I wouldn't even say trust the process, because the process still is they're still trying to figure out what the hell the process is. But once they get the pieces in place, that's when the big picture will start coming into focus. What I'm thinking, though, is as like a low watermark as far as expectations, though, they easily could go 8-8. I could see either them stumbling out of the blocks, losing the first 3 games of the season before the chemistry is there, Or I could also see them figuring out their chemistry in the preseason, coming out in the first season and blowing out in the first two games, winning their first two games by blowouts. I could see that happening. It is going to be one of the most talked about, most intriguing parts of this upcoming NFL season.
You should be on the NFL draft. Hell, you're doing better than Wingo is.
I will take. Normally I would come back with like a smart-ass remark or something, but I will take that as a compliment. I'm speechless.
And I'm a fan of Trey Wingo.
You speechless?
Yeah.
I'd pay for that.
Trust me, it's live right now in 40 countries, which is about how many they're going to have tomorrow on the WWE Network. But
I can't wait.
yeah, no, it's actually I'm looking forward to the live event. I really am, kind of, sort of. To put the world in proper perspective, trust me, we're going to be talking about the draft for the next 5 weeks. So it's like we're limited about what we're actually going to say about it. But to keep the world in proper perspective, when WWE changed it from the draft to the Superstar Shakeup, do you think in your mind that enhanced the idea of what they were doing or detracted from it? Philip?
I think it then took away the element of almost, I don't know, I think it added to that element of this is a performance. We are moving people around based on our contracts and entertainment needs. I think it took away a little bit of the sports element, and even to that extent, a little bit of the storytelling of it too. Like instead of, for example, in the draft, it's randomized, or it's not as, oh, I'm picking this guy and you're picking this guy. Now it's very much, oh, we contracted this guy. Oh, we're moving this guy. Oh, I just got off the phone with Daniel Bryan with Shane McMahon, and we agreed. So it's like very much, oh, we're more dictating than it being random happenstance. And I don't know. I from the aspect of, oh, okay, might get to see some different matches. Okay, maybe I'm okay with it, but I don't know. I do kind of miss a little bit of the draft, but hey, sometimes you got to try new things and see how it works.
Tedrick?
I think how it's been presented on TV the last couple of years with the draft, and they're coming out with the draft picks and everything while interrupting the wrestling show aspect, had hurt the draft originally. I like what they're doing with it this time, but I'm sitting here thinking, you have the WWE Network. Why not rent out wherever the Manhattan Center, put a bunch of chairs in there, let a bunch of fans come in for free, set up a WWE Network special, and do it like the NFL Draft on the network on a non-Raw, non-SmackDown day. You bring in your potential call-ups from NXT, sit them in the front row around the table with their families and everything, build up the element, and then when one of them doesn't get drafted, they go back to NXT. Boom, you got a storyline. Oh my God, it's that frickin' easy. Then every 5 minutes, you have some. You could even have Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler, or Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler taking turns coming up to the podium saying, "With the next movement in the WWE Shake-Up Draft, whatever, SmackDown drafts Joe Mama." I would watch that. I won't watch the ESPN crap because it's all the same inane drivel, and Mel Kiper's hair really scares me. But I would watch that.
Now, WWE is also good sometimes, I shouldn't say sometimes, about playing the long game. I mean, this is a company that's been trying to build Roman Reigns as their main event babyface for 6 years as he's getting booed out of the building. Could this be an opportunity for the WWE to plant the seed that a year from now, when they tease the next superstar shakeup, that they have people hidden behind the scenes a little bit, or excuse me, not hidden physically, but more like rumored, hey, we're talking with
embedded reporters.
Mysterio might be, right. Like, it's been rumored that Rey Mysterio might be backstage. It's more rumor, that they're pushing more of the rumor stuff. So then that makes it an appeal to come to watch Raw or SmackDown, because now it really could be you don't know who will show up. There was definitely that element the last couple of weeks, like, oh look, Bobby Lashley's here. Oh look, Bobby Roode is here. And it was like, ooh, surprise. But does it now then feed the next year or in 2 years or whenever they do it again? Oh wow, this could be something bigger if they build it in that way.
The thing that I've always
I don't
looked.
think so. Oh, go ahead, Eddie.
Well, we're gonna slightly disagree, because I do believe that WWE has the ability to build the drama, and I believe that they could actually do something like this next year. Now, this is also entailing the fact that people like Bobby Lashley are actually going to go through NXT, where he completely bypassed that and came up to the main roster. Personally, I wouldn't have done that. I don't care how the fact that Lashley has been with WWE before. He's a former Impact and TNA champion. He's a former champion or a frontline fighter in Bellator. The only reason why I can seriously sit here and say that Lashley would have bolted straight up to the main roster is if they were going to try to build something up, MMA fighter versus MMA fighter, between him and Lesnar, which I think they could have done, but they didn't. Because didn't Lashley go to SmackDown?
No, he went to Raw.
He is still on Raw, so both Lesnar and Lashley.
I think he's on Raw.
Yeah.
But even if he doesn't, I mean, you can build it as a short game for SummerSlam, where you have your Raw versus SmackDown match. It's Lashley versus Lesnar. There's your dream match. But
Right.
to Phil's point, I don't think that they would ever go long game longer than through WrestleMania, because that's pretty much when they close the chapter on that calendar. That's the end that they close the calendar. Then the Raw after WrestleMania, and then the shakeup. That's the beginning of the new calendar, and they're going to run with that through Mania, and then hit the reset button again. It's very cyclical. It's only, people talk about seasons in wrestling. Well, there you go. Now you can pretty much figure out which season is coming up. You have WrestleMania season, you have SummerSlam season, you have the fall season, and then you have Christmas, which is your tribute to the troops and things like that.
Yeah, Rumble, Mania, SummerSlam, Survivor Series. Those had been the big...
all around the big four.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing. I would actually, and this is where I'm going to kind of like abscond with an idea. I would let Raw and SmackDown both be the build-up for the draft, preempt NXT on a Wednesday night to have a WWE draft special. Would I put it on Saturday? No. Sunday? No. Wednesday, I think, would be a good safe bet, because you could use the two live shows to build into a live draft special, and legitimately just go ahead and take it over and saying, guess what? Our front office has said nobody is safe. Bring that one back, and you're going to have people going, really? Prove it. I think they've proven that on more than one occasions when they've had mainline champions go from brand to brand. When you've had franchise players go brand to brand. Because remember the first time John Cena got drafted to SmackDown and then back to Raw 2 years later. Lo and behold, it's like people are going, Cena could move? Holy crap. If Cena can move, anybody could move. Taker could move, anybody can move. If they pull this on a Wednesday and say we are completely and totally wiping the slate clean. Well, first off, people like Wade Keller and Schmave Schmelzer are going to have an aneurysm at this. What do you mean they're going to have anything to bitch about? Don't get me started on the Andre the Giant documentary on HBO. I will absolutely flat go off on Schmave Schmelzer. But if they were to actually come out and say, we're going to wipe the slate clean and build it from square one, here comes the draft, and genuinely have members of the creative team on both sides of the fence, GM Kurt Angle, GM Paige, Commissioner Stephanie McMahon, Commissioner Shane McMahon, have per se Fit Finlay on one side, Arn Anderson on the other, and per se, I'd say hell, let Adam Pearce, one of the executive producers, come out and say with the first pick of the WWE draft, just put it over strong. And then you could also incorporate the NXT players. It's all in the packaging. And if there is one thing that WWE has been able to do over the years, sometimes against their own damn grain, that is package something to where the fan base is going to say, ooh. And that's something that's been kind of missing. Sure, Rumble, you're going to get that moment. Who's back? Ooh. But the fact of the matter stands, it's kind of like you can't always get that moment. I understand that. And it's just the little things in life that WWE has a penchant. And I'm not slamming WWE. I swear to God I'm not. But I will sit back and tell you point blank to your face and through this microphone and your speakers right now. Sometimes it's the little things in life that you overlook that mean the most. In any shade of professional wrestling, WWE, Impact, Ring of Honor, Lucha Underground, Evolve, hell, let's go ahead and break it down, Combat Zone, Peach State Wrestling Alliance, all of the above, MLW. Everybody misses little things that can make people sit back and go, oh. And they've been doing it for years. And it's not just pro wrestling. It's mixed martial arts. It's boxing. It's NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, the National Hockey League. Go Preds. Regardless. Win, lose, or draw. Go Preds. And, I was on, subject change, before I do, let me come back to that. Ted, any final comments on that direction that we were heading?
No, I think we have similar ideas as far as, it can be packaged differently and presented differently. So no, I think we pretty much drove that one into the ground. It definitely needs something to draw more eyes to it, I think.
Philip, final thoughts?
No, I'm just kind of right there. I just feel they could do it better, but it feels like lately they just, I don't know. I almost feel like there is some intent creatively, wow. But that they're not really pushing the envelope. And I think that's what's missing in the WWE as a whole. I think if you had to say, like, what's not there, I feel that is missing a little bit. And you can say, oh, yeah, look at the women's revolution. Okay, yeah, but the talent kind of pushed that. It felt like more than The Office. And the fans kind of pushed that more than The Office. That was sort of an organic progression on that side of the fence, not by The Office making. I don't know, like, people feeling that The Miz versus Daniel Bryan was going to be this cool, edgy thing right out of the gate. Oh, and now we have big cast. Like, is that creatively edgy?
Nope.
Is that, I get maybe sort of why they did it. At the same time, okay, that there is a lack of buildup of excitement. And I maybe I am being too critical. And, yes, there is that element of we don't know what they're planning next. But at the same time, we all want to see the WWE succeed. We want them to be the mothership of pro wrestling that we all knew them to be. And they still are. I mean, let's face it, no one else is going to come in anytime soon to be able to compete at the level of the WWE. At the same time, come on, like, why? It's something to be said for the same reason that, like, okay, I'm going to say it, and I still like her on Raw, but I know there's, like, Bayley gets horrible amounts of criticism because she wasn't the same as she was in NXT. That there's something about making that transition sometimes for folks where that feeling, that vibe is now gone when they step onto Raw or SmackDown.
Because.
And that. Go ahead.
because I'm going to ask you to lay out the phrase that you use about mainstream WWE programming.
It's a television show starring the McMahons that sometimes features wrestling.
Thank you. And what is NXT?
It is more of an event.
It is more of a pro wrestling show.
Mm-hmm.
See, and this is something that a lot of people are going to sit back and go, wait a minute, hold up. Let's put this in perspective. You can't have the same personality on Raw and SmackDown that you had on NXT.
Right.
Hunter and Regal run NXT. Vince runs Raw SmackDown. Vince is going to be, well, it's got to be bombastic and over the top. Whereas NXT relies more on storylines, characters, and in-ring action. Raw was more Austin 316, damn it. Whereas NXT, you have Sami Zayn and Nakamura trading forearm shots in the middle of the ring for a minute and the fans chanting fight forever. Pro wrestling promotions can be that over-the-top entity, but in the end, it is going to be the action that gets the show over. Promos are a great, wonderful thing, always have been, always will be, and believe me, there is an art to a promo. We've talked about that ad nauseum here, and we'll do it ad infinitum. But on WWE programming, it's all about the drama. Vince is all about WWE programming, mainstream, Raw and SmackDown. Vincent Kennedy McMahon is all about the forced drama rather than the in-ring action. Oh, we'll put a match here to let him go 8 minutes. Y'all see what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That's why it's like Bayley loved her to death on NXT. Loved her for the first year on the main roster. But because of the fact that she is not that bombastic personality, and I'm going to keep using that word for a while, that's my word for the day, that I looked up 29 years ago. Okay, 31, I lied. But because she doesn't have that over-the-top personality. She is an attractive young lady, but in the overall scheme of things, she is very plain in the eyes of Vince McMahon. Well, we've got to do something with her. We've given her the inflatable wavy things. We've started the hugger section of the hugger movement. But see, where she can be over with the fans 7 days a week, twice on Monday, that doesn't matter. For as much as the promo has been cut by Hunter and Vince and everybody else going, if you get over with them, the world is your oyster. Bayley's over with them. Bayley's not entirely over with Vince and creative because she has a tendency to be plain. It's not an insult. I swear it's not. It's just the truth. Phil, got to come back?
Well, I definitely hear what you're saying, and I'm thinking about what they're doing now, and almost to a degree, it feels like, and you know what, maybe WWE does know, but right now the fans don't know where are they going to go with Bayley and Sasha. Are they just doing the 180 of what they did before, which was they're just friends and we're going to leave it there, and now they're just enemies and we're just going to leave it there, or are they moving to a progression of who is heel and who is face? Because I kind of feel right now, I thought they were really pushing Sasha was going to do a heel turn. And then that kind of stopped, and now it almost feels like it's Bayley. And then you listen to commentators, and they don't know how to tell this story. Because they're neither one are being pushed over that edge in how they're telling this story. And when you look at Bayley's facial expression, it's like you said, it's flat. But is that because there's a lack of direction? Is that because they're waiting to pull the trigger on something else? Will there be that common foe that brings them back together, so you go the 180 back to we're friends again? Or is this the start of the development of the NXT Horsewomen?
Thank you. I was hoping that that either you or Ted would be the ones to say that. I didn't want to be the one to say that one, because I still think going into Mania next year, if not sooner, I wouldn't be surprised if it was a 4-on-4 Survivor Series match. Why not have the 4 horsewomen of NXT versus the 4 horsewomen of MMA? But then once again, who would you cheer for? Because most of your hardcore wrestling fans are going to cheer for Charlotte, Bayley, Sasha, and Becky. Most of your MMA fans are going to cheer for Ronda and Shayna and everybody else. And then you're going to have that moment where everybody just sits on their hands because they don't know who the hell to cheer for.
And what are they doing with for Becky? Like, or not Becky. Oh my gosh, my brain just died. You said Sasha, Bayley,
Charlotte, Becky.
Becky. You're right. All right, sorry, Becky. My brain just went down. Because, all right, at MCW, we have a ref named Becky. She's super over for some random reason. So, like, my brain got lost in, like, is it Becky? Yes, Becky. Sorry, I apologize. So, Becky Lynch, if you're seeing what they're doing with her on social media, they're almost making her the goof troop. They're making her more comedic. And how she, how she came in to save Charlotte, they filmed a little vignette that she's back there watching SmackDown, eating a bowl of cereal, and then, oh no, she don't, not on my show, and like she throws the cereal bowl and she runs out to help Charlotte. And they've done that for a couple of weeks now, and it's, what are they doing? And I feel like she's the one that's kind of been lost in a lot of this, and not by talent and not by personality, but for whatever reason, she's on the second tier of the female right now.
Right.
And not just right now, but she's been like that for 8 months. And I don't understand, because I think when they've given her the opportunity, she's really run with it. I don't know. And so now I feel like they're kind of, they're just letting her be goofy, because I don't think they know what else to do. And I have this feeling that she's probably like, what if we do this silly thing? And now that's a thing.
Why not just have her come riding out with the New Day on a stack of pancakes? She can be the strawberry topping.
I almost feel like that's not too far away.
Okay. And Ted, I don't. How much of SmackDown have you watched recently?
None.
Okay. So let me go ahead and take this one. Becky is in the same boat as Bayley. But Becky Lynch has that look. It could be the bottled red hair. I don't know. You can't pay me to believe it's real. Sorry, I know too many real redheads. Becky Lynch, when the belt...
Let her and Sasha have the same color hair.
Yeah, pretty... Well, depending on what week it is.
That's true.
Well, I mean, think about it, though. You've got Sasha, who keeps trying to reinvent Nicki Minaj. And still bring out Snoop Dogg. Hi, Unc. Lynch, when the bell sounds, is just like Bayley. Straightforward, straight ahead talent. But because everything has to be, in the eyes of Vincent Kennedy McMahon, so over the top, it has to be something that jumps up and will ultimately just bitch slap you to get your attention. Charlotte's robes, Asuka's entrance, Sasha's entrance. Think about this. Even Natty, who was very conservative in her style of dress for years, has gone with more of the see-through mesh panels. Even It's got to be something, and this is where I'm going to bring this line back up, and I'm sorry, kids, I'm going to do this. When Stephanie McMahon stood behind that podium and said, there is no sexualization of women in WWE, and the first time I heard and read that line, I said, bullshit. Plain and simple. I had to mute my own mic. Bourgeois. BS. As my good friend south of the border will jokingly tell me I'm wrong when I say this, el toro poo-poo.
Hold on, I got El Professor on speed now. Let me call him and verify and see if that's accurate.
Yes. And I was never El Professor, damn it.
Neither was I.
I know, but we got accused of being it the most.
I also got accused of being the equalizer, too.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh, I know. Could you imagine that tag team, though? Jeez.
The voice in the buffet.
Oh, God. Our tagline, yeah, Sawyer would have made our tagline, don't talk with your mouth full.
Damn it. Okay, real quick. For our international and the other 47 states that might not know what the hell we're talking about. When Ted Guinness and I worked...
Just leave it alone. Just leave it alone.
No, I'm going to run this real... I'll only do this. This will only take a minute, I swear, and that's yes. That's what she said. Ted and I worked for Global Championship Wrestling here in Alabama in the southeastern U.S. Two things in particular. We had a character by the name of El Professor. I will swear on a stack of Bibles and under oath that neither Ted nor myself were the character El Professor. El Profesor. We also had an in-ring competitor who went by the name of the Equalizer, which I never saw one dime when the gimmick name that I came up with, the Silent Giant, was put on his effing t-shirts. You're welcome. But we were both accused of being El Professor, and Ted was accused of being Equalizer. I can sit back and say, under oath, neither of these are factually accurate. It's funny as hell, though. Ted and I both knew the gentleman who was cast in the role of El Professor. Tremendous young man, tremendous gentleman, and always a pleasure to be around. But I think it's what I said about myself in my autobiography. But still, I digress. But DR, brother, miss you, and hope things are going well in your part of the country. That's all I can say. But yeah, the casting of the character El Professor just absolutely had me floored the first time I heard him speak in the role of the character. And he would just, and it's like, it sounds like something that I used to say on radio in different characterizations that I did whether I was working with Danny Wright or Jeff Kelly or Robbie Rags or some of the other people that I've been teamed up with over the years, because it's one of the gimmick voices similar to something I used to do. But I'm going to leave that part alone. But seriously, DR, wherever you are, love you, brother. So that's where we go with that. This is why, if it were not for the entrance that Finn Balor uses, Balor would be in big trouble. Because that entrance is that attention getter that creative sees, that Vince sees. And he's given a little bit of latitude because his in-ring style is anti-WWE. Whereas you have people like Kevin Owens, and same thing with AJ. AJ Styles is one of the best wrestlers on the planet. But even AJ Styles said in an interview that he constantly felt like he had to continue to prove himself to Vince McMahon. This does not surprise me. Because Vince feels that the audience, and this has been proven, kids, I'm not just speculating on this on pure hyperbole. I'm laying this out there based on what I have seen in WWE programming over the course of my life. Vince feels that the audience has the same attention span as he does. Gentlemen, either of you like to argue with me on that? Didn't think so.
I'm mixed on that one because I think certainly he identifies when it's a random momentary fluke. And I'm going to call it spade out.
Come on.
Like a James Ellsworth. The crowd liked James Ellsworth because he didn't look like everybody else's roster. And that's why they kind of marked out for the man with two hands. You know, and even though his T-shirts then sold out everybody in the company for, a month or two?
Yeah.
Like, Vince realized this is not going to last. This is not a guy who I'm going to be able to build really something big around and keep it around. Like, we have to end this and move it on quickly. And then, you know, when it ended with him not having his full 2 years on his contract.
Right.
So I think Vince does realize it. At the same time, I think there is still this mentality of, here is X guy that I want, and this is the guy, regardless of if the crowd latches on or not. And now I can see, you know, they have spent a lot of time and effort on Roman Reigns, and I still brag on it all the time because I don't think it's been successful. But there is a reward. The young crowd is really into Roman Reigns. Now Roman Reigns is the guy who is the Make-A-Wish granter guy. He is that guy who can represent. But I even think on that end they're kind of screwing it up because they're not going to let him go heel, but they realize they can't let him go face because the crowd is just so against him. I feel like then they failed on both objectives. You can't play it both ways forced. Like, you can, and yes, there was a tremendous case for how Stone Cold worked out as probably the first real and only quote unquote tweener, and I hate that word for the love of God. But he was able to do it in a way where he could identify, work with the crowd, change his way up when he needed to be more face or to be more heel in the moment, where Roman Reigns can't because he is not that capable. He is not that guy. And the portrayal he is doing in the ring is a forced-fed product that is not organic.
Ted, got a follow-up?
Hey, look, a squirrel.
Damn it.
Which way did it
Yeah,
go?
I had an example, but I forgot what it was. I legit forgot what it was. It was actually a really good example, though. So just take my word for it. I thought brilliant, but I'm not going to share it because I forgot.
You know, it's funny because I remember the Raw versus SmackDown face-to-face where Ellsworth was a part of that, and Chris Jericho was doing the bit and just looked him straight in the eyes and called him Chins McMahon. I'm on the floor laughing on that one because I know Vince is throwing stuff in the back. In my gut, I'm sitting back. I can see Vince with the glasses down around his nose just staring at the monitor with the headset on, and it's just like, he really say that? Damn it, Chris!
We got to move away from him because I'm gonna go in a really bad direction.
Move away from who so I can know?
Ellsworth.
Okay. Yeah, it's just flash in the pans like that. I mean, was never a fan of Ellsworth being on the main roster because I thought it was a waste of space. There are people with talent who would have killed for that television time.
Right.
And that's my number one thing as it pertains to that.
At the same time, I think I'm trying to think how Booker T worded it. Like, okay, it's time for him to go because, you know, he's going to have enough to live off of for the next couple of years. He'll be fine to have his nice little ride.
And he'll open his own pro wrestling tees store.
He probably already has it, and he already runs his own wrestling company. So, and that was even happening before he
Right.
Regardless of that, and he was already wearing fishnet stockings. I can't. Will we stop? I'm going to stop. Like I said, I'm going to go to a bad place. Now I'm trying to get back to where I was about to
disco
go.
music?
No.
Oh, then it's not that bad of a place.
Oh, trust me. It's a bad place that I was going to go to. Well, like, okay, so I'll bring up a Mick Foley. I almost said CM Punk. I think that's just so complex of an issue. I'll bring in Mick Foley. That everybody, I mean, people before Mick Foley went to WWE were like, you're not a top guy. At best, as he said it in his book, at best, he was being told that he would top of the middle or the bottom of the top, that he would never be the top guy. And that what finally sold Vince was the sit down with Jim Ross interview that he did. And that was the moment that Vince really latched onto him. Not him breaking his elbow every other day, jumping off the ring apron and landing that elbow drop where he gushed a pile of blood. That wasn't what got Vince's attention. It was that promo, that interview segment with Jim Ross that did it for him. And a guy who would have been a one-note flash in the pan, that thing changed the idea of what Mick Foley could be for the WWE. But even now, to hear in different interviews and different segments, there's still a little bit of like, I always feel like a resentment by Vince towards Mick Foley that he was the guy they used. That, now Mick Foley, he's at least a decade out of being active in the WWE ring. That, he wanted for his Hall of Fame ceremony, I think he wanted to wear the Santa Claus costume. And Vince is like, absolutely not. Have some respect. Like, and that, they kind of don't mesh well at times. I don't know. Was he a flash in the pan, or was he the right guy in the moment? And you can say that kind of the same thing about CM Punk, that there was that element of he was looked down on, that he was the quote-unquote indie darling. But I looked at how, at the same time, CM Punk, for anything you want to say about him, he did change a lot about how the WWE operated. And what I mean by that is, I'll call this fade out. I don't know if it's public. I'll just say it. Kenny Dykstra, Kenny Doane, Kenny from the Spirit Squad, however you know him.
Right.
When he was 14 years old at Killer Kowalski, Dr. Tom Pritchard, who was at the time the head of talent relations for the WWE, told him,
Tom or
kid,
Bruce?
You're 14 years old. You're already this good. When you get to the WWE, when you turn 18, you're going to be the youngest WWE champion in history.
No, did you? You said Dr. Tom. Are you sure you don't mean Bruce?
That was Dr. Tom, I'm pretty sure, right? Dr. Tom for a while was that talent guy.
I knew that Bruce was. I didn't know about Dr. Tom.
Unless I am blending, and it was Bruce, but it was the guy who was the talent relations director for a while.
Yeah, because Bruce was talent relations and creative.
And the reason I share this is because, like, before Kenny was 18 years old, he was wrestling on Raw in Philadelphia, which is against state law. He gets his contract the day before he turns 18. He goes to OVW to go to developmental. Well, guess who's there at the same time? CM Punk. And so you have the rise of the guy who's supposed to be the next face of the company as pushed by talent relations against CM Punk. And who's getting the responses? CM Punk. CM Punk, in the way he had his portrayal of his personality and how he pushed himself and kind of disregarded the standardized rules that were there in the WWE at the time. He became CM Punk and Kenny became Kenny. And I don't mean that in any kind of disrespectful way to either one. Kenny is one of my best friends in wrestling. But it happened in a way because CM Punk changed that paradigm a little bit. I used to say all the time, I was the first person who said, I think they chose the wrong person, that Colt Cabana should have gone up first because Colt was a big guy. Hey, that looks like that'd be somebody WWE would want. He could actually wrestle and he could be entertaining and funny. And that they used the wrong guy for the stereotypical what they want out of a guy, that they picked the wrong person at the wrong time. And that by the time Colt came up, on screen, I was like, I don't understand why they're going this way. This feels generic. This feels like there's no sense of his personality. And after 2 appearances on SmackDown, they fired him. I'm like, that's really weird. Now, if you listen to Art of Wrestling, I think you can piece together a little bit more about why he was probably let go. But, I think, again, I do think CM Punk changed that paradigm. And that since then, they've been riding it. And I do think that that's been the impetus for a lot of what you've seen creatively now, why do I keep messing up that word? Creatively, when it comes to NXT and the little bit of, and the more freedom, I mean, a tonner, so he has more freedom anyway, but to allow talent to be talent at NXT. And you are right. There's this weird mix where I do think Vince gets it. I also think he doesn't get it. I think he is in between two different paradigms. But you can also say, what the hell do you know, Phil? Because Vince McMahon's been on top of this for television for 40 years.
End of statement, or did we lose you?
That was end of statement.
Okay. Tedrick, got a follow-up?
I'm not even sure what I just heard.
Okay, this is where I'm going to go with this one. Knowing the fact that Kenny came up and he did the bit with the Spirit Squad, that buried him as an individual right off the bat, because there was no way that he could have changed his look as drastically as Nick Nemeth did in order to become Dolph Ziggler. Go from that vantage point. Dolph in of himself.
I'm going to completely disagree with you because of Dolph, because Dolph was then the caddy for Chavo Guerrero.
I know.
His brother then dies, and then Chavo becomes Chavo again, becomes a Guerrero again, instead of, well, I can't remember his name as the golfer.
I can't either.
And between Spirit Squad and being a caddy, Dolph Ziggler was able to become Dolph Ziggler.
But once again, there's a character shift in there. And I'm also going to go ahead and take the Foley one out from underneath you to a degree, because Mick Foley, and folks, listen closely, 9:53 p.m. Central Daylight Time on this 26th day of April, 2018. Mick Foley was one of the most unique anomalies that our industry has ever known, because of the fact he could pull off any role in any direction that was given to him. Remember, the almighty Rock almost got crap canned before The Rock was even born. Steve Austin was fired from WCW by FedEx, by certified letter. Meanwhile, let's put the world in play. World Class, couple other promotions. When Foley made his way to WCW, they dropped the Manson and he was Cactus Jack. Then the miracle move occurred to where he came up to the Fed. Cactus Jack, Mankind, Dude Love, the three faces of Foley. He pulled off each of those to a T. And he knew how to bend and warp the reality of those characters to where people would sit back and go, damn. Not everybody in our business can do that. You can have Cactus Jack Manson, Cactus Jack, as a homicidal maniac inside the ring, death match and all. And then 5 seconds later, you're going to sit back and go, wait, this guy's totally different than he was. What happened? And he will have you sitting back wondering, what did I just see? Because his personality has totally shifted in the same character. Then add Mankind to that, the more off-the-wall dark version of Cactus Jack. Then add Dude Love. You know, I've been a huge fan of Mick Foley since I first discovered him many years ago. Actually, tell you what, we're going to pick up this discussion after the top of the hour. And I know that, Ted, you said you've got a bug at the top of the hour, so I'm going to go ahead and throw to you for a last call and shameless plug, sir.
Last call. I got nothing again. I will say, though, that I'll leave on a quick story. I don't know if I told you guys at all, but I think it was October, WWE came to Boise, and I took my daughter to her very first pro wrestling event. And my ex-wife and I, she was like, well, if she gets bored, you might have to leave early. I was like, the hell I am. I paid $45 for these tickets. She's going to sit through the whole damn show. I didn't have to worry about it. She absolutely loved it. And the first thing she told me when she got into the car as we were leaving was, we have to get tickets every time they come. Well, now this year, June 22nd, they're coming back to Boise. So as soon as I get off the phone here, I'm actually going to go hit the pre-sale and get some choice tickets. And, it's amazing that pro wrestling can just, give you that bond, especially someone like me who is a not quite yet divorced, but living, a divorced lifestyle, and only see my daughter every other week. It's just amazing that the business that I spent a decade of my life in is the one thing that really brings my daughter and I together. And I just thought that was something cool that I wanted to share.
You want to throw out shameless plugs, or you could stay in hiding?
I'm staying in hiding.
Okay.
Nobody needs to know where the hell I am. Well, let's see. I just got done telling everybody that I'm going to WWE in Boise, so, shameless plugs. Hey, if you come to Boise, you'll probably see me.
There you go. Philip, where are you going to be this?
Your birthday is and your social is.
He's not social.
The last part of my social is 6666.
And I believe that, too. I have no problem believing that. Philip, where are you going to be this weekend?
I bet you can guess what the first 5 numbers are, too.
I believe those numbers are going to be 39, which normally stands for FY.
No, that would be 5 sixes for a total of 9 sixes in my social security number. So, yes, proof that I am actually Satan.
And congratulations to Calvin Ridley for being drafted by the Atlanta Falcons. Yes, Roll Tide. Before we hit the top of the hour, Phil, we'll throw out where you're going to be this weekend and personal plugs.
I am not going to a wrestling event, yet my weekend is going to be filled with wrestling shenanigans. I'm attending a wedding of one Mr. Jason Collins. So I am on my way to Georgia right now to celebrate with him, his family, and friends, including a plenty of wrestlers from the Tennessee and Georgia area.
I thought you were going to be in Tennessee this weekend.
I'm driving through Tennessee to get to Georgia.
Oh, okay. What part of Georgia?
Northern, I don't want to say exactly where that's. I'll say the Dalton Chatsworth area.
Okay, more or less. You're coming in on 75, right? Or are you coming on 85? Yeah. We'll talk about that off air. Real quick, you can find Philip, of course, through all social media at PS Phenom, correct?
Correct. PSPHENOM, and on Facebook at Deska Phil Stanford.
Sounds like a plan. Folks, tell you what, at Beyond Ringside on Twitter, Facebook.com/Beyond Ringside Live, ProWrestlingRadio.net, BeyondRingside.com, and a host of other domains are our home. Once again, hang tight. Hour number 1 of the books for everybody on YouTube. Come on over to the stations. You'll be able to catch the balance of the show and all of the original programming right here on Beyond Ringside Sports Radio. Tomorrow, by the way, real quick, thank you to everybody. We'll talk about that more later. Buffalo Wild Wings, Friday night, April 27th, 9 p.m. start time. Thank you. Okay, clear. And then this coming Saturday, I'll actually be in Griffin, Georgia, back behind the microphone announcing for a live event. So I'm really looking forward to that. It's caught me totally by surprise. Some old friends got in touch and say, hey, where are you going to be Saturday? It's like, have a microphone, we'll travel, pay me enough money, we'll talk. And that's the way it goes. FastEddieLayne.com is my home. Folks, tell you what, gonna head for the top of the hour break. For those of you listening live, hour 2 right around the corner on the Beyond Ringside Radio Network and ProWrestlingRadio.net.